Bas,
Simone.
finally you are here. London International Awards, Las Vegas, you arrived yesterday. You are the president of which category?
Digital and social influencers.
Digital social influencer. I mean, I had to go full disclosure here. You are not just my guest, you're my boss.
Yeah, be
You're
careful.
happy. However, this is not gonna hold me back. I'm gonna
No, no,
cross
no,
your
no.
ocean
Good.
and I'm gonna do it. And if we're gonna go through some storms, you're not gonna
It'll
make
be
me
fine.
pay later, right?
We won't drown.
We won't drown. Okay. So we believe that everybody's an ocean. Ocean 15 is a spin-off of like Transatlantic, my video podcast. I'm gonna use the 7th seas interview to cross your ocean. We're gonna start with the first one. Are you ready?
Bring it on.
Okay, cool. The oceans are fundamental in the support of human life. Not sure many have thought about this detail, and I'll tell you where I got the detail. But if, the word if, is in the middle of the word life. Life comes with if embedded into it. I take this as a sign, a lesson, and a warning. Whenever we stop asking ourselves if, our imagination takes a blow and a place of our mind dies. Now, when I look at your career, and you went through the ranks, and you're now like global CCO at Wunderman Thompson, I can't stop thinking that you must have taken like risk to get to where you are. And you must have like play with the if a lot. Got into life and play with the if. What kind of ceilings are you trying to break next? Because when I look at someone like you of your caliber, where do you go from there? What are the if are you going to ask yourself?
Good one. So I love creativity because of the risk that is involved. It could go wrong, and that's a great thing. It would be super boring if we knew what the outcome was going to be, and we don't know what the outcome is going to be. So I really like this if as a central point to life, because for me it is that what draws me to this industry is the risk that is involved in creativity, because where there's risk, there's upswing, there's possibility. And I just love looking for those ifs, and the bigger they are, the more attracted I am to them. And to your question about what the latest if is, don't ask me anything beyond this, but so I'm now doing something on the crossroad between genetic rescue and cultured meat.
Okay.
And I'll just leave it there.
That sounds really interesting. That sounds like a big if. But I'll tell you where I get this, because I had to give some context. And you probably know there is this amazing movie called Apocalypse Now. And in the movie, like I think it's like towards the beginning, like Martin Sheen is arriving with the boats and like to Captain Kurtz, right? And Dennis Hopper, the crazy photographer, is coming at him. And so Martin Sheen want to go and like meet Colonel Kurtz. And Dennis Hopper at one point said, Colonel Kurtz is a genius, he's a genius. He say things like crazy things. Do you know that if is in the middle of the word life? And he dropped this gem. It always stay with me from that movie. But I think you brought something that's it resonated with me. It's like the risk that comes with creativity. Everything can get wrong. It can go wrong at any moment. But I think I get pleasure for that. It's almost like it brings me back to when I was a kid. That you do something, but you know that you can screw it up, and that keeps you alive.
Absolutely, absolutely. I love it. And that's the thing with data and with people want to have grip. People want to know what the outcomes are. And I get it, because there's a lot of money involved, but it's still the beauty of what we do is the fact that there is a bit of risk.
You know, it's funny, like there was this poet that passed away a couple of years ago, Tony Oakland. Was a great American poet, very contemporary, and he had this beautiful poem called like Sweet Ruin. And he talked about his perfect life. And the poem is written from his point of view. One morning he's sitting in the kitchen and he looked at his life and it's so perfect. and he say in the poems like, don't you want, just like for the sake of it, for a moment, just break the happiness just a little bit to see how it sound, to bring the risk. It was very interesting. Okay, second question. In the deeper parts of the ocean, different currents clash, entwine, and separate in the span of a few seconds. This constant tension remind me of the following verse, all that I am, woven besides all I'm not. And these are the words of the 22-year-old poet Amanda Gorman. Now, the power of this verse is that perfectly describes what happens at the bottom of our personal ocean. What we are and what we are not intersect all the time. You are, I am, everybody is a living, a walking ocean. Your currents makes who you are. I'm sure like throughout many of the interviews that you have done, people always ask you like what you are, what you stand for. I'm gonna ask you what you are not, what you don't stand for.
Okay. I think, I mean, maybe it's if I say what I do think I am.
Tell me what you are not.
I'm gonna get there. I'm gonna get there, but I think I'm gonna frame it from, because I'm not reasonable.
You're not reasonable.
No, and what I mean by that is, if I believe in something, I will just go through walls, because you know Mission. You had some better references. My reference is Mission Impossible.
I think we go from a Poet's Night to Mission Impossible, brother.
I know. That's fine.
I'm kidding.
Hey,
No,
we're in Las Vegas.
Of course.
We're close to Hollywood.
Of course. It's a great reference, don't worry.
So Tom Cruise is on the TGV, the high-speed train. It's the first film. And basically the train goes into a tunnel and he's being chased by a helicopter.
Mm-hmm.
And then the helicopter goes into the tunnel and it explodes. And basically Tom gets projected, he gets like pushed.
Mm-hmm.
And there's this fire behind him that just pushes him through the tunnel just because of the pressure of the air. And that's how I feel sometimes. It's like I feel like I'm being pushed by something. I don't know what it is, but I'm just being pushed. And there's really nothing that's going to stop me. So in those moments, I'm not necessarily reasonable. I mean, I'm not unresponsible. I'm just going, and there's really nothing that can stop me.
I like that, it's like, it's funny because what you say, of course, like my advertising mind, where you say like I break through walls, immediately went to like Levi's commercial walls. I could see you, I could picture you just like running and like going through walls one by one, right? And I do like I'm not reasonable. Like, it's like, it's so interesting when like, when across people ocean, and I think we have been working for almost a year together. Very closely, right? Like, I was lucky enough to work very closely to you. And it's so interesting because, like, I wouldn't describe you as, oh, Bas is not reasonable. Like, but now I understand what you mean by that. And I think that's, is actually a thing that is very common among creative. And it's the only thing, like, I think probably is the other phase of resilience, if you will, right? Like, it's like resilience. Part of resilience is like being not reasonable. When you truly believe in something, where you really like, stand up for something, you just go for it. You go for it and you break walls. And that's like make other people believe that maybe you may not be reasonable. That's
and again,
a good thing.
I don't think if you ask 10 people and they need to, I mean, they're not going to say that I'm unreasonable. But I think why I'm saying that is because if you think about the next Rembrandt project that I did, or the one that I just talked about with the genetic rescue, is there are so many people that are saying that's not possible. That's just physically impossible to do. And I'm going, well, yeah, I hear you. But because if you're reasonable in that moment in time, you're just going to not do it. Because you're going to go, well, all these experts are saying that's not possible. So I sometimes have to be unreasonable just to get to where I want to get to.
Of course. Third question, man. A sea captain is responsible for the safe and efficient operation of the ship, including its seaworthiness, safety and security, cargo operation, navigation, crew management, legal compliance, everything. And the person and the cargo on board, including that. These are many roles into one. You have been a logistic engineer, which is like when I read in your bio, I was like, oh yeah, now it makes sense. That's why it's so very calm. It reminds me of my brother. And you have been a copywriter, a creative director, a global CCO. So you have been like many things in one. If you were to pick just one role, just give me one role, the one avenue in front of you, what would that be?
Yeah, and I mean, so English is not my native language, so I don't know if this word means something else and I'm just offending people. But I think pusher. I'm a pusher.
Okay.
And sometimes that's very annoying, especially when I take that behavior home to my wife and kids. But and that also comes from that feeling of just being pushed. But I just apply pressure.
No, it doesn't offend anybody. I mean, of course, pusher here is connected to drugs. So what I'm going to do, you just serve me like the best teaser. So this episode, when it's going to go live, is going to be like Bas Korsten and a reasonable pusher. I think it's awesome.
Good. Let's see how I'm going to recover from that one.
No, I love that. I love that. You know, actually, the metaphor and the analogy that you brought to the table of like being pushed and being that's like in this like, you know, tunnel, a wind tunnel, and kept being pushed. It's very visual and it's very real. It's fascinating because I do think that at a certain level in advertising, we all feel that kind of like, you know, force that almost like overpower us. And you had to somehow find a way to manage the force behind you. So that it was very
That's a
interesting.
good point. And I think that's also why I sometimes would love to be reasonable and would love to be able to balance things better. But that's just impossible if you're being driven like that. That's just...
Of course. Fourth question, Buy the Ticket, Take the Ride is the title of the documentary about Hunter Thompson, narrated by Nick Nolte. If you haven't watched it, I strongly recommend you to watch this documentary. It opens with an image of Hunter swimming in a large blue swimming pool while wearing a mask of Richard Nixon. I found this like hilarious and genius at the same time. If you look up the sentence, buy the ticket, take the ride, in the Urban Dictionary, you are served with the definition, creating and being involved in a situation that may get you in a way over your head, but deciding that turning back will be a rather an interesting option. I know that you encountered this situation in your life. But in a few words, do you think that have you ever truly bought a ticket and took the ride? Or you still are standing in line and waiting to buy that ticket to take a ride?
No, I bought a ticket.
You bought a ticket?
I bought a ticket. I started my own advertising agency called Nothing. And there were a lot of people saying, well, you shouldn't use negative words. And you're like, well, I'm going to prove you all wrong. And I love Nothing because I'm a big Seinfeld fan, and he had a show about nothing, and I thought, okay, this is an advertising agency, and we are nothing until the solution presents itself, and then we become what we need to be. And of course, I thought, wouldn't it be great to read an adage, Omnicom buys nothing for 80 million. That didn't happen. Nothing lived up to its name. It just went up in flames. I did invent a new sport called foot golf. That's now being played all over the world. If you want to play in Las Vegas, I can recommend you foot golf clubs. But I wouldn't have never gone there if I didn't buy the ticket. I had a really good job. I had my own agency, was at DDB, and this was experimental. This was just I have no idea where this is going to go. And in the end, it was just one like major, not catastrophe, but it was such a great ride, but without the outcome that you were hoping for. And I've learned a lot, and I took that on board with me and just for my journey. But that was definitely not your average move, basically.
That's interesting, man. You know, I'm a big fan of Wunderman Thompson. There are many quotes for him, but whenever I read this quote, like buy the ticket, take the ride, to me is like it comes very close to the last note that he left before committing suicide. He says like, "You 50 now, don't get greedy. You had enough." And like unfortunately, he committed suicide. But I think we are all somehow in this industry trying the moment where we try to buy the ticket, take the ride, and I see a lot of people standing in line trying to get the ticket, and like, you know, and some people they never buy the ticket, and some people, they are scared of get on the ride.
But the question is, to the point of the discussion about being reasonable, and who's better off?
The one that buy the ticket, the one that stand in line, you mean?
I would love to stand in line and not be bothered by the fact that I'm waiting for a shit long time.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to know what it is to be standing in line and not having to feel the need to get on the ride per se.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I need to get on that ride all the time.
You know, it's funny because I think sometimes what happens is like you are not conscious of the fact that you bought a ticket and you are on a ride. So I'll tell you this, right? This is actually, follow me. This we are here at the London International Awards, and I met a chief creative officer. There used to be a copywriter, Ayum from Mats, and we haven't seen each other in 17 years. 17 years. Last time I saw this guy was like 2005. I saw him like again in Vegas 17 years after. Yesterday we went for dinner, and we are like, you know, talking a little bit, and I found out that he lives literally like, you know, the street close to where I used to live back in Hamburg 17 years ago. Last time I saw him, it was like 17 years ago. If someone 17 years ago tapped me on the shoulder and told me like, you see this guy, you guys gonna meet in Vegas in 2022 on Monday, having a dinner on Las Vegas Boulevard, I would say, you crazy. Yeah. This is not gonna happen. So somehow this made me think I did buy a ticket, even if he didn't want to, and I was on the right if he didn't want to. And maybe he was on the right too, and that's what happened last night when we met. Like, we're still on the right, both of them, but like maybe sometimes you are not aware that you bought the ticket. That's my whole point.
Yeah.
It's like, it's very, very interesting, very fascinating, this like, you know, different like movement on a map of like human beings.
Yeah, but I like the thrill of the ride, and to the point of creativity and the risk that is involved. I mean, I couldn't imagine not being on the ride, and buying the ticket. It's just that I sometimes would love to just stand in line. Just not feel the need to get on that ride again. Anyway.
Okay, my fifth question. Running between Greenland and Siberia, the Gakale Ridge is the deepest mid-ocean ridge in the world, reaching depth of up to 3 miles. As of today, remain the most unexplored place in the ocean. Your ocean is constantly under a magnified lens, not just like by people that surround you, it's like by people that work with you, people that live with you. You have a big family. So is there just a place inside you that haven't been explored by anybody that surrounds you, that you keep just for yourself, that you don't put it like out there in the public, that you don't use it, you don't go there, you close it, it's locked up, it's just for you? Or maybe you go there just like to take a couple of bottles of inspiration and use it for like some kind of work.
Yeah. I wanted to be in music. And I'm still thinking, well, I mean, why do you need to talk about it like that's something that has gone and passed? Why can't I just buy the music ticket? But I think I love writing, and in the role that I have now, don't write as much as I used to or as I want to. So I write lyrics for songs. I don't hear music, I just write lyrics. So I have
In which language do you write?
In English.
In English?
Yeah. I have around 50 songs that are just for me. I'm not going to show them to anyone. I have a daughter that sings really well. Maybe at some point she'll, I'll give them to her.
So you wrote 50 songs just for you,
Yeah.
just for your place. That's like probably the point in your ocean that hasn't been explored yet. You don't want to like anybody to explore that.
No, I mean, again, I think I applied to be in a boy band at some point.
You applied. You did apply to be in a boy band.
I didn't get selected. So
I think it was your haircut that didn't get you there.
it might have been the haircut. They didn't specify that in the note that I got, but I didn't get selected. And but I would have loved to be in music. I love the power of music, but I'll keep this one to myself.
So that would be, if I were to ask you the question, like, believe with me for a second, come with me into this reincarnation trip. So if you were like
Sure.
into the next life, would you be willing to like let go of this talent that you have in this life and go for the music talent?
Oh, absolutely.
Anytime.
Absolutely. Yeah. I have no idea how I ended up here, to be fair. Again, logistic engineering, slightly different.
Like, because I'm sorry, I can't help us laughing because right now I'm just like visualizing like the John Travolta Pulp Fiction meme. I don't know why I end up here, and you're looking around, and there is like, you know, everybody at Wunderman Thompson. How did you end up here? Like,
No,
that's actually very interesting.
But it is true. It is true because, I mean, that's the beauty of life. Is just it takes you. I do feel that what I'm doing and the place that I'm in is the right place for me at this moment. It's just that I don't know. It could have gone so differently. To your point of meeting the guy Monday for dinner. The journey is very interesting. But I do feel at ease where I'm now.
That's awesome. Sixth question: the most distant point from an ocean in the Eurasian pole of inaccessibility is this like point called Eurasian pole of inaccessibility. It is 1,644 miles from the nearest coastline. Put yourself in the shoes of a young person who graduated yesterday, and he or she is about to start a journey in advertising. The end point feels like that point of inaccessible. You have the chance to stick one note in the backpack of this young person, one note. What would you write on the note?
Although I love writing, as I just said, I'm not going to write anything.
Nothing. Just a blank note.
And the reason why I don't want to write anything is if it doesn't come from within you to reach that point, whatever I write on that note is not going to get you there. It needs to come from, and going back to that idea of being driven towards something, it needs to be within you. And that's also when I look at people that I admire, or there's always this drive to go somewhere. And I think, I mean, there's a great, I don't want to be tricked into saying something that, because again, I feel that it needs to come from within you, and nothing that anyone would have ever said to me would have gotten me to where I am now if it wasn't within me. And I think, but there is this Chinese saying that I love, which is fall down 7 times, get up 8 times. And that's something that I tell my kids is like, you're gonna fall down, but it's just whether you get up or not, which is going to be the difference.
That's a really good saying, man. You know, I thought a lot about this when I was writing down the question. I was like, I have so many quotes. I'm an avid reader, and I have like writing and sentence like coming from my writing and things I've read in a book. But there was one quote that I have tattooed actually among all the quotes here in my arm. Is actually the graveyard of one of my favorite poets, like Charles Bukowski. And he's buried like in Palos Verdes, and I used to pay visit to him because I used to live very close to his like where he's buried, the cemetery. I used to go there once a month, like, you know, and on his graveyard there is written like "Don't try," and there is this guy see with like a boxing like you know stance, and all I thought that this "Don't try" means like don't try on me, or don't even try, like you know. Instead, what he really meant, it was like if it doesn't come within you, Don't force it.
Yeah.
Don't try. Don't don't make it happen
I like
just
that.
because you have to. And I always thought that he was referring to writing, of course, but I think it's a really good approach in life. Don't try, don't force it,
Yeah.
Great. Okay, so you just arrived yesterday. You're gonna fly back to Amsterdam on Saturday. So let's fast forward a few days. We are there Saturday. You're packing your bags. Now, you're probably gonna pick up a few memories. I'm gonna ask you to pick up 2 memories for this trip from the London International Awards. But I'm gonna ask you to stick this memory, one on your carry-on, and 1 memory in your luggage. And I'm gonna ask you is, what are these 2 memories? Which one goes where and why?
We think we're objective jurors. I mean, we're as subjective as they come because where we come from. But even if we were in a fight with our spouses the day before we flew in here, that's going to decide if you're going to vote for that crappy case with the right kind of music, just because you feel. And I think that is great, because I think that is the beauty of getting a few people together in a room from very different, that don't know each other, from very different places, very different backgrounds. The moment will decide where this discussion goes, and I love that. So that's also why I mean, I can imagine that that's the memory that I'm going to take in my carry-on luggage. Is just the discussions. I haven't had them, so that's a bit weird. But every jury experience so far has been great, because you make new friends, you learn new people, you do weird things like this kind of stuff. But I actually, and again, luggage. I don't have luggage.
You didn't have luggage? Wouldn't you want to put in your luggage this carpet, for instance? I mean, the decadence, the decadence of this beautiful city. I mean, every time I come here to Vegas, man, there is Leaving Las Vegas playing my mind with Nicolas Cage, or Casino. I mean, it's a really weird place to be.
It is weird. It is very weird, and I try to make sense of it, but it doesn't make sense. I also don't think it brings out the best in people per se. But still, I mean, talking to people who love what I love as well, and just being cooped up in a room that's slightly too cold, to talk about the work that we all love, is one of the best experiences you can have. I'm just really glad that I'm having it.
Awesome, brother. Look, I'm very thankful that I could cross your ocean, and definitely a great journey. I wish you all the best for the next days, and definitely I'll see you around.
Thanks, man.
Thank you so much, Bas. Okay, that was awesome.
Thank you. It was good. I mean, where do you get these questions?